Generative AI in the supply chain. You hear it everywhere, right? But what does it actually mean? What does it do? We're going to cut right through all that noise and see how this technology is going from just, a fancy chatbot into a real partner that can actually run things for you. So, let's dive in.
Just take a look at this. I mean, this is what a modern supply chain really is, right? It's this giant, tangled web. You've got suppliers, warehouses, trucks, ships, all over the globe. And trying to keep track of it all, it can feel completely impossible. And that, right there, is the core promise of this next wave of AI, to finally bring some real intelligence to tame all of this complexity.
All right, so before we can even talk about the solution, we've got to be really clear on the problem. What are we actually trying to fix here?
And yeah, this pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? For anyone in supply chain, this is your daily reality. You're just drowning in data. It's coming from your ERP, your warehouse systems, a dozen different tracking websites, and asking a simple question, something like, hey, what's our inventory on this part? That simple question kicks off this huge manual email chain that can take hours to get an answer for. It's just so slow, so inefficient, and it means you're always playing catch-up, always reacting to problems instead of, actually getting ahead of them.
Okay, so that's the mess we're in. The big question is, how do we get out of it? How do we break free from this constant reactive manual firefighting and build something smarter? The answer, it turns out, involves two different but really complementary kinds of AI.
The easiest way to think about it is like this. Imagine you get to hire two brand new specialists for your team. The first one, a brilliant analyst. Genius level. They can instantly answer any question you have. The second one, they're a tireless operator. They just get things done. 24/7, no sick days, no coffee breaks.
So let's actually meet them. On one side, you've got conversational AI. This is your analyst. You're probably familiar with this. Think ChatGPT, Claude, that kind of thing. It's great at summarizing a dense contract or explaining why a sales forecast suddenly dipped. It talks to you. But then, on the other side, you have AI agents. This is your operator. And this is the key difference. They don't just talk, they act. They can actually go monitor your inventory, place a new purchase order, or even reroute a shipment that's in trouble, all on their own.
But here's where it gets really interesting. These two things, they're not just separate tools working side by side. They actually represent a kind of evolutionary ladder. It's a progression, a climb towards more and more autonomy that's going to completely change how work gets done.
And this is what that ladder looks like. We call it the agentic spectrum. You start at the bottom, pretty simple, a conversational assistant that just answers your questions. Then you take a step up. Now it's a task assistant. It can help you draft an RFP, for example. Another step up, you get a semi-autonomous agent. This one can actually create a purchase order, but it still needs you to give it the final okay. And then at the very top, you have fully autonomous agents, or even whole teams of agents working together to manage entire processes, like your whole inventory replenishment cycle, completely on their own.
Okay, but wait a second. This brings up a really important question, right? How does an AI, which is basically just a fancy text prediction machine, actually climb that ladder? How does it go from just talking about stuff to actually doing things in the real world? The answer, and this is the magic trick, is something called function calling. This is the absolute game changer. It's what lets an AI use tools. So when you ask it something it can't answer just from its internal knowledge, it's smart enough to know, hey, I need to call an external function for this. Like an API that connects to your inventory system. That's how it gets live data or actually performs a task. This right here, this is the bridge from just words to real-world action. So let's walk through how it actually works. You ask a simple question. What's the inventory of SKU 12345? Now, instead of just guessing, the AI agent realizes, oh, to answer that, I need to use my inventory_check tool. So the system makes the call, it pings your live database, and pulls the real-time number. Then it hands that info back to the AI, which translates it into a simple, human-friendly answer. We have 450 units in warehouse A. See? It's simple, but it's incredibly powerful, because it's always connected to your actual real-world data.
Okay, so that's the theory. That's how the tech works. But what about the real world? What happens when a company actually rolls this stuff out? Let's take a look at the actual impact.
So let's dive into a quick case study here. We've got a mid-sized manufacturing company, and they were dealing with all the same headaches we talked about earlier. So they decided to go for it. They deployed a conversational assistant for their team, and they also set up an autonomous agent to manage their inventory replenishment.
The first result? It was just staggering. A 75% drop in all those routine, time-wasting questions the procurement team had to answer day in and day out.
And the time it took to get a simple inventory count? That went from an average of 4 hours down to just a few seconds. Think about that.
Because of that speed, their stockout rate, a huge deal for any manufacturer, plummeted from a painful 8% all the way down to just 2%.
And all of this together led to a 23% jump in inventory turns. That means their cash is working so much harder for them. I mean, these aren't just little tweaks. These are massive business-changing results.
So you might be wondering, how did they get those incredible numbers? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was a total transformation of how they worked. That 4-hour email wait for an inventory check, gone. It's now an instant answer. That purchase order that used to get lost in a 3-day email nightmare, now it's automatically approved in less than a day for routine stuff. And monitoring suppliers, they went from doing a manual review every few months, totally reactive, to having an AI that watches things continuously, proactively.
This, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all, the one on everyone's mind. What does this mean for the actual people working in supply chain? And this is so important. This is not a story about AI replacing people. It's a story about a new kind of partnership.
And that's the absolute core idea here. The goal isn't to replace the deep expertise of a supply chain pro who's been doing this for 20 years. No way. The goal is to amplify what they can do by getting rid of all the tedious, repetitive stuff that eats up their day.
So you end up with this new division of labor, and it's crystal clear. The humans, we get to focus on what we're uniquely good at, high-level strategy, building those crucial supplier relationships, and making those tough judgment calls that require real experience. And the AI, it gets to handle what it's good at, crunching massive amounts of data, making routine decisions instantly, and keeping an eye on everything, 24/7.
And that, ultimately, is the real prize. Your best, most experienced people are no longer stuck answering, "Where's my stuff?" all day. Instead, they're using that brainpower to build stronger partnerships, to find smarter sourcing opportunities, and to solve the next big problem before it even hits.
So I want to leave you with this one thought. Just imagine for a second that you have this technology tomorrow. You have a brilliant analyst that knows everything about your operations and a tireless operator that can execute any task you give it. What's the very first question you would ask your new AI supply chain partner?